Power supplies you really want to make right, because these are the underappreciated products and hated products when they fail. In the power supply market for the typical application is very much dominated by China. And in China you have all ranges from very low end to reasonably high end. Everybody claims to have the greatest stuff, but in reality it's not.
Hi Florian, welcome back.
Hi Michael.
Can you quickly introduce yourself to the audience and what you do?
Yeah, hello. I'm Florian Heike, founder and CEO of Selenius Company Limited. And we help entrepreneurs and medium-sized companies to turn their concepts and ideas into manufacturable products and actually get their products made and shipped to their door.
Great. So it's not only developing products, but it's actually this manufacturing and over the long term as well.
The manufacturing itself, the logistics, the shipments, the things that all go around, also the supply chain planning. Yes.
Great. So from some of our previous conversations, I've learned that procurement managers in some of these medium-sized companies are some of the people you help. Can you explain a little bit about how the procurement departments generally work and how you guys work together?
Yeah. Okay, so for the procurement departments, normally their job is get everything in-house, don't overstock, and get the best price. That's their job. And when something goes wrong, it's their fault. So they really have a tough job in any organization, because they're not the ones that generate the sales. They're not the ones that make the beautiful presentations, but they're the one when their customer complains that they don't get a product, or when the cost is too high, or the financial manager complains, you have too much inventory in your warehouse. It's always hitting on the procurement manager. So I have to say, I sometimes feel pity for these guys because they don't really have an easy standing, but they are an important role in every organization.
Okay, so for the procurement departments and the managers, what is their number one priority? And what are the main challenges that they face that you help with?
They also have competing priorities. Yeah, depending on the market, depending on the contracts that are behind there. But generally, in the most dominant is reduce the cost. This is like the KPI they're usually being given. But then again, I think especially during the pandemic and now with all these activities of warfare, resilience of supply chains become more and more important. And then given the situation that some countries in the world impose duties to hurt other countries, supply chains start shifting and adapting to the new environment. And procurement managers need to be aware of this and play along with it. And yeah, it's a multifaceted requirement that procurement people deal every day.
Yeah, some rough seas out there for the procurement people. But I imagine it's very rewarding when things go well, when the products are made well and that there's long-term supply chain in place. So I want to get into the topic of the power supplies, because what I've learned is that the power supply sourcing is very important for special lighting, for a lot of your projects and products. Are there opportunities to source power supplies that actually provide long-term cost savings?
Yeah, I think power supplies you really want to make right, because these are the underappreciated products and hated products when they fail. So yes, you have to be careful with your power supply sourcing. I mean, the power supply market for the typical application is very much dominated by China. We do have specialty power supplies and high-end stuff that's still made in the West, but the majority of power supplies coming from China. And in China you have all ranges from very low end to reasonably high end. But how do you detect that? That's not so easy. Everybody claims to have the greatest stuff, but in reality it's not. So my experience is when I walk into a power supply manufacturer, you can tell already a lot of things, how they are organized, what values they deliver. Yeah.
What are the indicators that you can tell right away when you walk into the power supply manufacturer?
Well, when you have to take a freight elevator to get into the office, then you already know that cost is their major driver. Yeah. Next one that I'm always saying, like, when you are at a manufacturer, go to the restroom. If the restroom is poorly managed, don't expect too much from the factory line either.
Yeah, I've heard that story before.
Yeah?
If they're trying to save cost on getting the restroom clean, then they're going to save cost where it counts.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then another one is you go to the QC department or you inspect the equipment that's on the line that is used to test things. Look at the calibration marks. Are they maintained? Are they okay? A lot of small details, like when you are soldering, like power supply, usually you have to solder components. Are there exhaust vents above the workers? Do they care about the workers' health and safety? Or was that already taken out for cost reasons? Look at the burn-in room. Do they have a burn-in room? Is the burn room adequately sized compared to the quantities they claim to produce?
What's the burn room?
Burn-in room, like a lot of power supplies, you try to run for 4 hours. Yeah, but if the supplier tells you, yeah, I'm going to make 100,000 power supplies a month, then you can calculate. Hang on, 100,000 a month, that makes 3,000 a day. If you want to test 3,000 every 4 hours and you're really perfect, then you need to test 500 at the same time. That's on a perfect model. But if you only see 200 burn-in spots, you already know they will claim that they will test it 4 hours, but in reality they cannot because they just don't have the space for it.
Right.
Does that match?
So you can walk into the factory and notice these things, and right away you can kind of rate this manufacturer as sort of like A, B, C, D.
It's not a one scale. So I have to look at each thing. Then you go into the IQC section, into the warehouse. Are the components stored? For instance, SMD components. Is the storage air conditioned? Or was the air condition saved? Then the solderability of the components will be questionable. You get cold solder spots. Cold solder spots are one of the top failure modes of a power supply.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Okay, so and a typical SMD component, which is the surface mount device, you have a PCB, you put solder paste on, then they're on reels, they go on a machine, and then they are placed onto the component. Now, then they go through an oven, an IR oven, and the solder paste will melt and connect to the component, to the surface of the component. Now, if the components were not adequately stored, humidity, and in South China it can be quite humid, can lead to oxidization on the surface of the component. And so the tin does not well connect to the component itself. And then this is an unreliable connection. That's why a lot of people say SMD components, if they're not vacuum packed, you can only use them for 6 months.
And so
Well, are you going to throw away all the components because just it turned over 6 months if you need to save cost? Okay, so little things to consider. Not that doesn't mean that every component becomes bad 6 months and 1 day after. It's not like this. It's a rule of the thumb thing. But how they manage it, yeah, you can take some little extra steps to circumvent that. And the good factories, they have all these procedures in place and execute upon them, and others don't. Also about how you maintain the tin in your wave soldering machine. How often do you replace the tin? How do you verify it? How do you make sure that your temperature profile is correct?
Yeah, it's very complex.
It's not easy, and nobody will put that on their website. That's why audits of the factories are super important. You cannot rely on beautiful PowerPoint presentations or websites or Alibaba content to tell you exactly this is a good factory.